All right, we're open up with prayer. Everybody would bow your heads. Lord Father, thank you so much for the time that we have here together in your marvelous feast. Thank you also for your weekly Sabbath day, which is upon us now. We ask that you send your Spirit amongst us to help us with the teaching, the speaking, the hearing, and just that you help us to understand the messages that you will have us take home from this evening with Leon. And just please bless Leon's tongue. I know he's got a good one. We just love this guy. Thank you so much. And we ask this always through your Son, Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah. Amen.
Amen. If we have a title for a Bible study, it'll be Woe to the Rich. And the reason this impacted me about a month ago, 2 months ago, whenever I requested to do this Bible study, it was that I am concerned about me, how much am I separating myself from the world? You're in the world every day. I mean, I go to work, I'm around people every day. But spiritually speaking, are we truly coming out of the world? We think that what do we think success is in our society? You know, you try to get an education, you got a finance, a big car, you want a nice house, nice car. I mean, and we want the same thing, but it's a matter of priority. If we in the churches of God are completely honest, we cannot quickly get a top manager job in corporate America. Certain jobs we can't do because we have to lie. And I know for a fact I worked in the Fortune 100 company for 25 years. I could have never made management in that company because they want you to falsify your reports. They want you to put a little on there. So the intent of this particular Bible study is we desire to be rich, but I don't think, and we are rich if we are poor. In one sense, James said that the gospel of the kingdom was for the poor. But I don't know what he's talking about. And this is not for me to lecture. I want everybody to participate. If you feel it, say something. Because I'm learning too. I like to think that I'm setting the tone for the topic, but I hope I'm be more of a facilitator for the sake of order and everything done in order as God instructed. But everybody got a brain, and everybody should have God's spirit and an idea, and you're free to talk. I encourage it. So I want you to participate, and that's the reason I wanted you to have the scriptures in advance. I'm going to read Revelation, the 18th chapter, verse 9. Everybody probably familiar with this. The kings of the earth who committed fornication lived in luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning. They talk about the great Babylon, standing at a distance in fear for her torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, from one hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth, and in this case here, I don't know what word they had in the 16th century English, but when we think of the merchants of the earth today, we think about the people who control the banks and the finance and the manufacturing things. We're not thinking about it in the sense of merchants. So the merchants of the earth will weep and moan over her, for no one buys the merchandise and anymore. And we were talking about these large corporations again. Now, I want some comment on this. What are they really saying? I want to know. I want y'all to tell me what y'all think about that particular scripture.
Thought?
What is he talking about? He said, some of the things in there just we think we understand, but they are the rich, the powerful, saying the people can't afford to buy, and so they are hurting. And if you think you see some parallel in today's society, speak up. But I started that because mainly what the inspiration for this is actually starts in James the 5th chapter, verse 1. Come now, you rich, weep and How for your miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches are corrupt, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver are corroded, and their corrosion will be witness against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have heaped up treasures in the last days. And this is what he accused them of doing. Indeed, the wages of the labor who have mowed your field when you kept back by fraud. Now, what people he's talking about? Is he talking about America today or the merchants today? That they're not honest with their labors? And he talks about that in Isaiah 58 too, by being fair to the labor. So do we have some greedy rich people today that do not care anything about their workers? You want to say
Even
something?
if they didn't literally keep back the wages are being eaten into by nakash, which is usury, a fraudulent monetary system that is built on paper. It's not built on gold or silver. So, yes, I think it is a prophecy. James is making a prophecy. And until you read it, it never occurred to me that it was a prophecy for this very time, where they can, we know that over COVID, the percentage of the wealth accrued to these elite rich people has gone up immensely. And the average day laborer is not faring well. How are they going to afford this kind of gas to be able to even get to work?
Anybody else?
I'll make a quick statement. There's never been a time in history of humankind until a little over 100 years ago or so where there has been a network of a cartel of banking, a banking cartel globally. It's never happened in the history of humankind. It's an unprecedented time. In the past, there was economies of scale in various kingdoms throughout the planet, and there was also corruption going on at the time. One of the reasons some people have suggested, one of the reasons why Christ was so upset with the money changers is they were cheating. They were cheating, basically,
Okay,
people, not just merchandising in a holy place, but they were cheating people. And this is the same thing that's been going on. That's why when you look through the New Testament, especially, there probably are examples in the Old Testament too, but in my mind, I'm thinking of the New Testament, whereby it talks about the tax collector as basically a charlatan and that sort of thing, and the sin of debt and this type of thing. Christ uses that because I think it's been a problem throughout time, and then only now in this past century plus has there been a time where there's control globally of the economy, of the banking system, the money, control the people. It really is pretty much that simple, looking at it on a big scale anyway. And basically what has happened is the common person is a wage slave, is basically the easiest way to say that.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a saying that, or a fact that 3% of the people in the world control 90% of the wealth of the world?
Whatever the exact number is, that's probably not too far off. Yeah, it's
Right.
A 1.5, yeah, 1.5%.
over here, and then we'll go that way.
I don't have a comment as much as I do a question. It says, woe, woe, the great city of Babylon. In the Bible, I think when it talks about Babylon, is it not talking about Jerusalem? And is this am I looking at it wrong?
I think he's talking about Rome.
Rome?
Yeah, the head of the Catholic Church. They're considered the modern day Babylon. They got all their religions based on the ancient Babylon. Everything they do, the Trinity and everything come out of ancient Babylon. So they basically talking about, I believe they're talking about Babylon because they talk about 7 hills. Even the Catholic Church knows that they're talking about Rome. They said that was old Rome, not the new Rome. So, but they omit it when it talks about the 7 hills and the city. I don't know where it is right now, but I know y'all familiar with that. And so I believe it's that the Catholic Church is carrying on all the rituals of Rome.
And
You know,
really,
you notice in the Catholic Church, they never talk about the Father. They say a little about the Son, but most of it's about the Mary, and she's replacing the ancient Easter, and all of the names of the ancient goddess.
we're working.
Her point, real quick, just to answer your point about your question about Babylon. My particular understanding, given where we're watching things going, Babylon is also another word for confusion. And you look at the systems of men that stem from Rome, that stem from Catholicism, that have now morphed their ways into this governmental, industrial, fascist complex. Because that's what fascism is. It's the merging of business and religion and government into one monster entity that controls everything, including the way you think. Because if you don't think the right way, they can cancel you, which I think gets you to the point where you can't buy or sell unless you think and act the way the beast, which are always referencing the institutions and governments of men that are not from Yah. At least that's my understanding. I don't know if that helps answer your question. At least that's how I view.
And also the prophecy in Daniel, we're going to work our way around. We got a couple back here. The prophecy of Daniel, remember all these dynasties, these kingdoms that happen over time. It's all one body. Don't forget that. It's all one body.
I'm a guy that's curious. Would somebody look on the internet and see how many of the Supreme Court justices are Catholic? 6 out of 9. The President of the United States, he's Catholic.
If they're not practicing, then the Jesuits are coming after you.
Yeah.
Okay, we understand that we are not supposed to hold ourselves higher than other mankind. And in Revelations 18:7, it says, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. So much torment and sorrow give her, for she says in her heart, I sit as a queen and am no widow and shall see no sorrow. So she's built herself up high. And she's stepping on people to get where she's at. And we're taught in God's word that we never do that. We should never try to exalt ourselves above another person.
Shirley, next to you, I think. Okay, then Diane, I think is next over here. I got the easy side.
Yeah. I need the exercise. Can you tell?
My middle son, who graduated with an economics degree, said that Babylon was the world economic system.
Well, I agree with that a little bit because of the merchants. They talk about the merchants, so I think and they would be the people that would be involved in economics. So I can agree with that. Not that it matters that I agree, but I will.
Notice the big box stores stay open during COVID.
Yeah, that's a good one.
All the big box stores, the liquor stores, the gambling casinos run by the mafia, they get to stay open and accrue their wealth. But we don't care if 10 million small businesses go out of business.
Diane, if he had said the World Economic Forum, then the Vatican is in lockstep with, and this Pope is in lockstep with the goals of the World Economic Forum, the one world government, in other words. So,
Headed by Klaus.
yeah, they know that.
All the greats, right?
Well, I'm curious, we identifying the problem, what it is that we are supposed to be doing.
Preaching the gospel.
I mean, what is our lifestyle?
Good question. What does it take to...
I mean, what does Jesus require of us as individuals? How should we be living? And basically what he's telling us, it's in the Beatitudes, so it's not that. But my problem is, I think that we have been so involved in the church, we've got so much knowledge that sometimes we're out here on the heart of the super intellectual stuff, but we're not going back to the basic attitudes. And that's what salvation is.
To preach, we as a people, we're too tied down to our stuff. And so it requires a certain mobility to preach the gospel, to not have a care for one's own life, but to, there's a great commission that we were given to do. So whatever a person's way is of doing that, there's many, many different ways. But in general, we're too tied down to our stuff. We have too much stuff, too many payments and cares, heaviness, and when people tie their lives on into the hours spent, whether it's watching television or media, it saps the time, saps the strength.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Bernard. And Leon, thanks for facilitating. Really appreciate it. Your question about what is it that we're supposed to do, I'm glad you asked. For years, we've been very, very theoretical in the church. You know, we all know the steps of prophecy, and we all know clean and unclean meats, and we got everything down real neat, right? Okay, and there was a time for that. I was training wheels. I think now, when you ask what's our job, to be ambassadors. Christ said that we've got the ministry of reconciliation. Okay, Jesus Christ, he ain't here right now.
I agree with you.
Physically he's not here, but physically he is here because he's in each of us, right? Okay. We're supposed to have the mind of Christ. So right now, the world, they're looking for answers. My wife tells me all the time, Ben, there's so many people that are looking, you have no idea. Because she got baptized just 4 years ago, okay? So for several decades, she's out there in the world looking for answers. I was glad to meet, I think is it Rhonda? And another couple, they came in 2 years ago. I think it was friends of Regina and Todd, okay? I'm like, wait a minute, God is still calling people out of this world? Yeah, he is. How come he's not doing a greater work? Because of the bride, because of the church. What do people see when they look at us? Are we depressed? Are we worried? Are we trying to figure it out? Well, if we don't have answers, it's going to affect our witness. So I think we've got to be better ambassadors. We've got to be better witnesses, and then God can do a greater work because he's got some folks down here showing other people that are looking how to get what the truth is and how to walk. So I think we're ambassadors, or should be.
Okay.
Over here.
Hi. In Revelations 22, verse 11, it tells us exactly what we're supposed to be doing in the end times. And it says, let the one who is unrighteous be unrighteous still. Let the one who is filthy be filthy still. And let the one who is righteous be righteous still. And let the one who is holy be holy still. So who are we? Are we going to be the unrighteous, or are we going to be the righteous and stay righteous? And I think that kind of goes back to the Beatitudes as to how we treat others, ourselves, and speaking the truth and not being afraid. Have the courage. That's mentioned many times in Proverbs. That's it. Thanks.
Would you read Revelation 12:17? Or anybody can read it.
And the Spirit and the bride say, come, and let the
Well,
one...
that's 12. Is that 12:17? Revelation 12:17. That identifies us. Okay.
Trying to get in the right
Anybody else can find it?
Somebody have a handy? Here, John.
I got one right here.
What's it? You got it? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Diane, you made a good point. We're tied to our stuff, and even those of us who have come to realize, we're slaves to the system. Some of us try to downsize, try to, eliminate those unnecessary things, but sometimes still we're tied to that slavery of living. And since most of our lives, not sleeping, or either, the busy work it takes to be at home and live, and then the portion of your life that is tied into work, which part of that time are you spending with God or doing His work? I work in an environment to where I am able to preach the gospel to all my coworkers and interact with the customers that come into my environment. Everybody doesn't have that complete freedom, but when someone comes to me, that they see this light in me, people come to ask me about the Bible all the time. And these are people that are not religious. They come to me seeking comfort. What is going on in the world? And we just pull out my Bible, and we sit down and we have Bible study, okay? Customers have come into the store where I work, reached across the counter and said, I need you to pray for me, okay? And we drop right there and we pray right there in the store, all right? If you're in a free environment, do you know whether you're in that environment or not? Do you even know? Because everywhere, we're not locked out of places everywhere yet. Have you even stepped beyond that comfort zone to know whether you can preach the gospel where you spend a giant majority of your life? Okay?
Revelation, was it 12:17?
Yes.
Then the dragon was furious with the woman and went to make war with the rest of her seed who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ.
The reason I wanted to go there, that identifies us almost at the end time. If you want to know where God's people are, they got the testimony of Christ and they keep the Ten Commandments. And it's the same thing. It's Revelation 14:12 basically said the same thing. And so we need to preach our greatest sermon by the way we live our lives.
Yeah, and if we're keeping God's commandments in the spirit of truth, truth and spirit, right? Then what shouldn't the outside society see the fruit of the Spirit somehow or another, right?
Yeah.
Well, I heard one Sabbatarian elder say one time in another group online, say something to the effect of that, a lot of people seem to look at Sabbatarians, let's say, he was talking about their own group, and they say, oh yeah, they're Sabbatarians. They're people that argue about a lot of stupid things. And wouldn't it be great if people looked at it and said, whoa, there's a group of people that are Christians that actually go and help people and do good things for people and take time and are patient and they show the fruit of the Spirit. And that's something that I think all Christians should learn from that kind of statement, because it's not just Sabbatarians that argue about stupid things.
What I found out in my experience, just being on the radio in a local small town where everybody knows you, one thing about it, when you go on radio in a small town like I did, I had no idea what I was doing, you under a magnifying glass. I ride down the street. I was getting on my grandson when he was 15 and said a word that was not sin, but a word that you don't normally use. And the guy, the biggest drunk in town, jumped up and started critiquing me because, yeah, you're supposed to be a preacher. Look what you're doing, something like that. So if you are speaking out, but one of the things, the scripture we just read, that they had the testimony of Christ. When they opened their mouth, Christ came out. Yeah.
right away. I'll give it to you right away. Go to chapter 19 of Revelation. It's going to flesh out what the testimony of Yeshua is. Right before it talks about the marriage supper in verse 7 and verse 9, it says the testimony of Yeshua is the spirit of prophecy.
Yeah.
And thanks to Mr. Deering and our illustrious band leader, Bernard, we got more testimony of Yeshua, spirit of prophecy, in the first few days here, the first comments of Mr. Deering, than we got in the last 30 months at our Church of God down in Jackson, Mississippi. There was no, if you're not reading like Mr. Deering is, and you don't know what's going on, how are you going to know where you are in prophecy?
And when, Leon, when you mentioned that we need to be living the life, it reminds me of 2 Corinthians 3 and verse 2, where Paul said, you are our epistle and inscribed in our hearts, being known and read by all men. We're the Bible that people are going to read. They may not ever read this thing here, but if God is in us, then they ought to be able to know what the Word says because they're looking at you and they're looking at me.
Look, you're living the word, okay.
That's exactly what Jim said in our congregation some months ago. Is we might be the only Bible anyone ever reads, so keep that in mind.
And finally, I was riding with a girl, like going back and forth to work with her, and I knew her for about 8 years. One day her car broke down, and I was giving her a ride, and that's the first time she found out that I was keeping the Sabbath. She had been studying; she had never gone to church, and she started coming to church with us right after that. But I had no idea that she was into it, studying the things that we believe, and she was thirsty too. And she didn't know I was doing it because I didn't, at work I didn't talk about it. I tell people I was on the radio. They knew I was on the radio, so they would get mad at me. And I said, well, I'm not imposing on you. If you turn the radio station on, you're gonna hear what you're gonna hear. But here, I'd rather try to live the life than run around and try to correct everybody. I try to just do what I think is right, and that's basically, and then that's when I found out. Cassie.
I think that the random acts of kindness that we do gives us a door of opportunity to witness. And I say that according to this past summer, I had to hire a very small lawnmower company. It was a man with a business and one employee. And he wanted to come mow my yard on Sabbath because he got behind on his other work projects. And I said, well, could you come on Sunday or Monday? I'll wait. And he wasn't too happy about it, but he did send another employee out that came out on a Friday. And this was the hottest day of the year. And so when he was halfway finished with his mowing, I took him out a big ice pitcher, and I said, I hope this helps you. And he's like, wow, I've never had anybody do that for me. And then he said, why didn't you want your lawn mowed on Saturday? And it gave me the opportunity to witness to him that this is what the commandments say, and I only go according to what my God tells me to do. So you have these little opportunities, but we have to be conscious that those opportunities are available.
Okay.
I'm going to try to bring you full circle here, Leon, for a minute, because I know your initial scriptures in Luke you want to talk about.
No, that's all right. I'm just good.
Well, we started.
I don't have a set agenda. Wherever it
That's
goes,
good.
it goes. Wherever it goes, it goes.
Yeah, it's ish. He's being led by the Spirit, and wherever it goes,
no.
just take it easy.
Yeah.
Well, we opened up in Revelation 18, and one of the things that hit me when we had read it, when we're looking at this woman, that the kings of the earth had, committed fornication. See, I'm trying to see where that is so I can read it. Yeah, it got all the way to the bottom. Yeah, and it says the kings of the earth committed fornication, verse 9 of Revelation 18. They lived deliciously with her, and they bewail her and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, when it's all gone and it's all burned up. And this is a system that everyone is profiting from. Because you read further down, those were the kings. Now we got the merchants weeping and wailing.
Yeah,
We're
good
talking
point.
about a system
Yeah.
that encompasses everything that everybody's involved in. Everyone's learned how the loopholes. Everyone knows how to cheat the system so they can get ahead. And then when that is burned up and it's no more, everyone's lamenting and wailing, which I think is the original point you mentioned, and then it kind of got lost in the ether of what kind of people should we be. Because in all honesty, we're Americans. We're spoiled, rotten Americans that have been blessed with prosperity because of our forebears' obedience to the commandments, our forebear obedience to the foundational laws that established the country. We're still living off the blessings of prosperity that they achieved for us and that we're enjoying and we don't appreciate. You know, and when I use, spoiled rotten Americans, I'm saying that as an American who's spoiled rotten and got to see what the other side of the world has to deal with, other brethren on the other side of the world have to deal with. And they're not going to be wailing and complaining. My son Prasad and Chitty, when they said, Daddy, when they called one time and said, you sound frustrated. Well, my air conditioner unit had gone out. I was waiting for John Wilson to come fix it. I had other issues. I had a roof leak and everything. And Prasad just said, Daddy, sounds like rich man's problems. Rich man's problems.
What I'm saying is, we are spoiled. People criticize the system when sometimes it's not justified. The people who want to destroy the system have no way of replacing the infrastructure. I mean, if the water lights go out, who's going to turn them back on? Most of the people who are doing the complaining, they don't know how to keep the lights on. All we know how to, I've been involved in it, I don't know how to do it. I even work for TVA, and I don't know how to do it, because I know it's complex. We come in here, we hit a button, we got lights. We go in there and want water, we got water. And then we are overly sensitive to criticizing every little thing. Some of the things we are critiquing are not that important. I'm saying we are too far in the world. Our mind is too concentrated on the world because we complain just like the people in the world about the same thing. We should be the happiest people on earth because we have hope because Jesus Christ came out of the grave. And he didn't stay there. And that's where we're supposed to be looking. We're supposed to be looking. We are not supposed to be involved in this world the way it is. We're supposed to come out of the world. And that means when Satan gets angry, the two scriptures I was referring to in Revelation means if you got the testimony of Christ and you keeping the commandments of God, you're in trouble in this world. And the other scripture, the 14th of Revelation in verse 12, talks about the patience of the saints. They had the faith of Jesus, and they had the commandments. And that's where, what I'm trying to get at, are we really thinking about the beatitude type things that Jesus said think about? Are we really thinking about turning the other cheek? Do we really think about, I think about, I had to pull out I don't look at boxing no more because I want somebody to knock somebody's brains out, and I'm putting away from football a little bit because of the aggressiveness of it and too many people getting hurt. But if you really think about us, because I'm listening to people talk, not here, but everywhere, and some of the things we talked about, you could talk to anybody about it. They wouldn't know any different than us and everybody else. If you get too involved in the world, sometimes we have to pull ourselves out of the world spiritually and physically. Physically we're in the world, but spiritually we're supposed to be, I think Paul said, our citizenship is in heaven. And my favorite scripture from the day I was baptized was Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was pilgrim and strangers, and they looked for that city. I mean, that's why I talk about it. But they went through all kind of problems. But what kept Abraham focused was that he had visions. Without vision, the people perish. we looking for, the old black Negro spiritual on that great getting up morning fair. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see everybody there. And I just think that we do not concentrate on the Beatitudes enough. I think I tell everybody the Ten Commandments and the Beatitudes are the basis of my religion. I'll talk about anything you want to talk about, but for my everyday life, I want to get back to the Beatitudes. I got cheated out of 6 hours before I came. I just said, I'm not. God that's your business now. Because I'm going to the feast. I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, if they take the money, I just give it to them. And normally that would kill me. I hate to lose, and I'm competitive. But being a Christian, you have to learn how to lose. Everybody know how to win. We have to learn how to give it up, and let God take over. Put it in God's hands. I don't want to suffer either, but it seems if you are in God's word, that's what's going to happen.
Hey, Leon?
Yes.
That you mentioned the joy that we should be the happiest people on earth is such a great reminder. And while some folks might hear me criticize our church culture for this, that, or the other thing, I also try to give credit where credit is due. And in my view, in my opinion, one of the greatest teachings has come out of, as far as I know, only the Church of God culture. And I don't know, but I've yet to hear any other Christian culture speak of what a lot of us are now calling the fair chance doctrine, meaning that upon the last great day after the second resurrection, that there would be an opportunity of repentance at that time. I honestly have not heard that come. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm sure individuals believe that somewhere in groups, but I haven't heard of another church culture that has taught that for decades. Now, I'm not saying everybody in the Church of God believes that, but what I'm saying is it is a teaching that has come, far as I know, mostly or only from this Church of God culture. And in my opinion, I don't think it's been capitalized on as much as we could have. I think there's a lot of people that don't have hope, regardless whether they believe in God or not. They don't have hope for a lost loved one for one reason or another. They never came to know Christ, or the philosophical questions of what about people and Bushmen, or somebody that never heard of Jesus Christ, Yeshua Messiah somewhere. And most of Christianity doesn't seem to have a real answer for that. In fact, as much as people like to bash Catholics, I will say that at least the Catholic Church gives people purgatory. Most Christians don't even give people that. So while we're going to bash, other groups of people, let's remember that there's sometimes mercy within some of those people that it might not be biblical, but there's somebody somewhere along the way maybe said, there's got to be a merciful way somehow, and maybe they didn't understand what we understand and teach about the second resurrection and all this, but someone thought of that and it had to come from God somehow. I don't know. But anyway, it's just something I think that the churches of God can capitalize more on and help people. What do we do? You ask, what should we be doing? We should be giving people hope.
Hope, that's it.
That's what we should be doing.
I personally have given the sermon of the last great day probably a dozen times to hurting people in the world. And I didn't just give that message. These were people that, due to circumstance at work or however I knew these people, I developed a relationship, and they saw in me that something different. And through fostering a relationship, when I say a sermon, we talk in depth about the plan of salvation and the hope that them as an unbeliever or a family member as an unbeliever has. And we pull the Bible out and we show it in Scripture. So I have monopolized on that. I don't even know how many times, but I can list at least 12 times. And
what was the reaction most of the time? Positive, negative?
very positive, always positive with a believer on whichever part of their spiritual journey they're at. And I'm saying, we know we're not the only people being worked with. People that don't have all the truth, but are seeking the truth, God, who am I to judge whether God is working with them? All right, and then there are those not spiritual in any way, just why are you like this? I know you take off every Sabbath or every Saturday. They know I'm doing it for church. They know. If somebody where I am does not know who I am, I'm not doing it right. Everywhere I go, they know why I'm gone Saturday. They know that I'm not going to talk about my coworker because that is just not a godly way to handle a bad situation. They have no question that what my faith is. And yes, there are sometimes people that kind of snub you for it, but that is so rare. I mean, right now, we are not under as much persecution as you think. We are free to do these things, and we're not going to be free to do them much longer. If we're not taking advantage of that, I mean, we're not fulfilling our commitment to God, and we're not growing like we should. I mean, every opportunity I get, and you can do it in a way where you never offend a single person.
Definitely minimize it, regardless. Todd first.
Oh, well, it's not just giving hope to grieving relatives, but it's also not telling a lie about the nature of God. He doesn't condemn people. What he says, he blinds them on purpose. Romans 9. Why has he blinded the Jews? So that he can have mercy on them later. And when the Jews finally get called at the end of the age, which we've been seeing in the last several generations, a mushrooming of Messianic Judaism and thousands of Jews coming to belief in Yeshua, what shall it mean but life from the dead? So, really, even Bullinger, when he comments on the Great White Throne Judgment in his commentary on Revelation, which I have somewhere here, he says it really doesn't have the air of judgment. It sounds like books are being opened. A scroll of life is being opened. Maybe God wants to write some new names in the scroll of life. Maybe he wants to get them a chance to see what's in the books of the Bible and then really know a God who wants every man to dwell under their own vine and fig tree. These rich men of the earth, they are unlike most kings, most statesmen, most presidents. Yeshua said, what do the Gentiles of the world seek for? They seek food, clothing. They seek natural prosperity for their people. They want the economy to do well. They want the governors of Mississippi have brought auto plants to Mississippi in past generations. And it's brought a lot of wealth to certain areas. But these rich men of the earth could care less whether you live or die. Extremely demonic and unnatural. And so we're showing that God wants every man to dwell under their own vine and fig tree through these festivals.
I think one thing that we're not concentrating on that I think is that the calling, he mentioned it like the two resurrections, but this calling here the Bible calls it the better resurrection. And I don't think we concentrate, I don't think I understand it because of why I'm saying it. That first fruit, how special that is. And we start overlooking that. For God to look around the world and pick us few people to give us an opportunity, which it doesn't make us any more important because Christ was more important than all of us, and he gave his life for us. And Jesus said that the Gentiles, that he didn't come to have, told us not to exercise authority, because that's what the Gentiles want. When you were talking about what the rich people want, they love to have authority over people. They love to have control over people, be master over people. And I don't have that desire, but you know there's a lot of people in this world want to just to be the boss. That's all they want to be.
And there's one other thing that these demonic Klaus Schwab people want. They're this little strange horn in Revelation, Daniel 7, that's different from all the other horns. It's got eyes all around it. They like to be voyeurs. What's a voyeur? They want to know everything about your life. They want to look through your TV. They want to backdoor to your computer. They want to blackmail you when they find out the wicked things that you're involved in, the pornography, the illicit affairs. They want to play God.
I believe that's original sin.
Isn't that what this is right here? Isn't that this? Yeah. Let me just hear a moment. You don't have one here tonight.
I don't.
Sorry.
I do, but no, I don't.
Same thing.
Hi. So, I'm Leanne. I came into this at age 61. So we'll kind of go from there. That's right. But I just wanted to say, you know, it's when I met Ben, and and I didn't know anything about this. I've been searching 40 years. I mean, it's just, there's a lot out there. And then I started to ask Ben questions, and he explained to me, well, he said the Sabbath, so read this. Well, I'm a numbers person, so I had no trouble figuring the Sabbath out. Boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, got it, boom, Sabbath. But then I got into more difficult questions. My son was in Iraq, and I lost a part of him in Iraq because he was involved in a shooting, and he's the sweetest, kindest man you ever want to meet. I mean, he would go hunting, but he could never kill an animal. So he'd just sit in those little seats up there in the tree and just watch the deer go by. And it was always interesting. But anyhow, he came home from Iraq, and you look in his eyes, and he was gone. And he said, Mom, there's not going to be a life for me because I've sinned. He said, I've sinned, and God won't accept me. And I said, Ben, tell me what to say to him. So Ben taught me that there's only one unpardonable sin, and he also told me about the second resurrection. And I'm telling all of you, it gave me hope, and it gave my son hope. And y'all, you're so special. I walked into this room today, and I felt so much love and so much joy and so much peace. And I'm telling you, you just have to look at all of you, and it's there. So sometimes all we have to do is just walk out there and smile, and people are going to want to know what's going on. Right? Right. Yeah.
She brought up a good point that I have never been to a place where this many people, and you walk up to anybody like you've been knowing them for 100 years. Anybody. You don't have to say, well, I don't know about that person. You say, anybody you see, you just walk up and start talking like you've been knowing them all your life, and you just don't even know their names, really. But that spirit is here. Yes, ma'am.
And the fact is, we're not cookie cutter Christians of one another. We're not on the same exact page of every little teeny little thing. Other people here are on a slightly different calendar, and it's cool. We're all together in unity, and that's, I think, what our Father wants.
I don't have a question, or I don't have a comment. I have a question.
Okay.
When something about the Bible is always, especially about the end times, how we're supposed to exit the world. We're not supposed to be a part of it. Being a human being, I often relate that to physical things like somebody said the phone. We are so attached to our phone, and is that really a good idea, being a godly person, to be attached to that phone when we know that everything bad is starting to come from that phone? Are we supposed to detach ourselves from those things that could compromise us or somebody else? You know, and that's kind of what I think, but I always wondered exactly what the extent of removing yourself from the world meant. Thanks.
I guess to Nash, since I have the microphone first, I guess I'm gonna give it right to you as soon as I'm done. Because that's a great point, because it is a question, how far do you go to separate yourselves? I mean, look at the Amish. You know, they want to separate themselves at a point they're still living in the 1860s. It's up, to each. I think what the point is, in terms of, throwing away cell phones and not having anything to do, once it starts controlling you and the values of this world through these devices, when they start manipulating you, when it says we're in the world. When Jesus was praying to the Father before he was put to death, he prayed, I pray that you not take them out of the world, but that they would be one as we are one. That was his prayer. Because how can you preach the gospel if you come out of the world, shut the doors, shut the windows? How can you preach the gospel? And that's what the corporate church, that's what we've done. That's what I've done. We shut the doors. No, we're not part of them. We have nothing to do with them. We have no interaction with them. How can you shine like a light, number one? Number two, how can you preach the gospel? What it means coming, we're seeing it now. If you don't think and act the way society wants, this gets back to the whole point about the dragon, Satan being angry and wrathful against the people of God who have the testimony of Jesus. When you speak the truth, as you mentioned, when you stand up for the truth, when a man in a dress is wanting everybody to proclaim him a woman, if you stand and say the truth, no, I'm sorry, you're a guy in a dress, you go to jail. That's where he's going to be right. The target of God is going to be on you. That's where persecution is going to come. But you have to stand up for the truth. Removing ourselves and being in the world but not of it. We don't want to share the value systems of the world. And sometimes that doesn't mean that we agree with that, but we're silent. We don't say anything. We don't say that that's a man in a dress because we don't want to lose our jobs. We don't want to be kicked off the school board. We don't want to lose out on that loan because now the bank is doing ESG scoring, social credit scoring. We don't want to, and that becomes dangerous because then we shut down, and there is no light to reflect against the demonic influence that's being forced on all of us. So that's all I had to say. And Regina's over at that end, but Diane had her hand up. So
Real quick, getting back to the question and on this topic, I was watching an online stream replay, I don't really remember, of, I don't know if it was in Jacob's tent, it was someplace, okay, that was doing a production. And the gentleman was talking about, he actually was using a parallel from the song Sound of Silence and how it was prophetic, and he was pointing out certain words in it about speaking without talking and this type of thing, and likening it to the cell phones and stuff and being connected into technology. And he did go, I don't know how far, I don't really remember he went, but he went far enough to where it was almost like, get out of all these things. It was like really, really condemning technology. Yet, while he was saying that, there was somebody, how there's like comments that fly in while the stream's going on. And there was a lady that said something to the effect of she was so thankful that they were streaming this because she doesn't have a group near her. So do you see the dichotomy that can happen? You can throw the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there when the printing press was invented said, this is satanic. Do you see what I'm saying? I mean, you can go overboard. The wheel is also technology. Was that satanic, or is it something we're going to get sucked into? So yes, there's no doubt about it that there's an overwhelming amount of people sucked in to technology to varying degrees. I've personally tried to use the technology for spreading truth, spreading the gospel,
Amen.
questioning things, whatever. I mean, that's what I've tried to do. Now it's gotten a lot harder recently, right? With all the censorship and everything. So yeah, and things change like that too. But no, it's a very good point. It's a very good question. And there needs to be some kind of balance in anything we do. That's kind of the way I look at it anyway. And I forgot where we were, maybe over.
I think most of us do know, right? We realize and understand that our phones hear everything we say, and they can give transcriptions back, and they, it's recorded, it's sent somewhere. So our comments here in this room, this meeting we're having right now, and for a while, every time you get together or wherever you are or whatever you're doing, your phone knows it, picks up whatever else is around you and knows all about that. It knows where you're going. So if you don't want your phone to know where you're going, then if you got a new car, it's going to know where you're going. But if you don't, you still have to leave your phone at home, and it thinks that maybe you're there, because sometimes you just leave your phone sitting there in that particular place sometimes, so it doesn't really know if you're gone. I don't know. Is it not something we should address and talk about? Is it the elephant in the room? Sometime or another, it'd be cool to have that discussion.
I like that discussion, because what I say is, hey, NSA, hello, NSA, hey, repent. Are you learning something, NSA? Repent. And that's my attitude to Google and everything. I want them to read everything I'm saying, because I feel like what I'm saying has value. And I take it that way. That's my...
Laid over there.
Yeah, well, while you're giving it to Regina, speaking of what you just said, Diane, about phones listening, just an FYI of how scary it is out there. I found out that my sister Cindy and I are on an FBI terror watch list. My younger sister went to work. My younger sister went for a job interview at a daycare center up in the Chicago area. She had to go through a security screening. And they asked her specifically if she was related to a Michael Scott Deering and a Cindy Jean Newmuller. And yeah, those are my brother and sister. And they gave her a hard time. My sister wanted to know why. Well, they're on a terror watch list. Do you want to know why we're on a terror watch list? Because my sister and I did a seminar at the Feast of Tabernacles in 2019 called The War of Spiritual Wickedness, Against Spiritual Wickedness. And we gave a sermon about dealing with spiritual entities. And in that seminar, we specifically called out the spirit of Jezebel, which was the homosexual transgender movement, which was really gaining steam back then. Simply because of what we spoke at the Feast of Tabernacles, and because it was online, somebody complained somewhere, and then the FBI got it, and I'm on a terror. If you're not on the list, you're not doing something right.
This may be a little bit off kilter, and I may be misunderstanding some things, but what keeps coming to my mind is faith. We got to keep the faith that no matter what is going on in our lives, wherever we're at, whatever's going on, we got to keep the faith. Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 14, popped in my brain. It says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor does anyone light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house. Let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven." That is what we should strive for every day. And Roger can tell you, we are movie people. We watched this movie, and some of you may know what I'm talking about. It's called Hacksaw Ridge. It is this true story about Desmond Doss. He was in a war. I can't remember which one it was. It was with the Japanese, I think. World War II. And in the story, his daddy was actually, I think, in the French Revolutionary War. It was one of them, to where he saw so much death that he became an alcoholic. He was abusing his wife, his children, and whatever. And there was an incident that took place to where, Desmond come in as a young man. His dad was beating on his mom. He took a gun and had it in his dad's face. He almost killed him. And I think they were Seventh-day Adventists. And then he realized, he's like, I almost just took a man's life. So he swore he'd never pick another gun up. Then the war broke out. He wanted to go to war to help people, not to kill people. He refused to get a gun and raise a gun against, another person. Long story short, he was put through a bunch of stuff, thrown in the brigade, all kind of stuff. They finally went overseas to war. They were up there waging war on Hacksaw Ridge. He still wouldn't bring a gun to shoot nobody. You know, he's getting ridiculed and beat up because of it. But what happened was he started pulling anybody and everybody he could find that was injured down this big old rope, dragging them down to safety. And I forgot how many did he save, like 70-something or 80-something people? He were even bringing the Japanese down, but he never raised a gun against anybody. And they asked him, you know, why are you not shooting or whatever? And he's like, because I have faith in my God, he's going to protect me. And he did up to a degree. It got to the point to where when they went to go back up the next time, and he wouldn't go up on the Sabbath. He refused to go up there on the Sabbath. And the team that he was with, even his commander who harassed him about this, would not go up that next day without him. But what got him injured was he broke down and went up on the Sabbath one day, you know, up there to fight, which he got injured and had to be released. But it was all about his faith. And that's what I'm going to say to Leanne is there is still hope and faith for your son. This ain't the only opportunity he's got. His sin is no greater than the next person's. We all got baggage. We all got sin. That's why we get baptized and we're letting go of the old man or old woman, in our case being females. We're being made anew. We are our own worst enemies. You know, I have a lot of sin from my past, and it's hard at times for me to let it go because I'm like, how can God love me for this? You know, what makes me so special? Why am I so worthy? You know, this is some of the worst stuff you could ever do. But that's the human in me, the fleshy part of me coming out, and I have to understand he don't see through the same eyes that I see through, and I thank God for that. When another human being is hurting us, putting us down, and we take to heart what they're saying, we're wrong, because what matters is what our Father thinks of us, how he sees us. You know, what are our good works? What fruits of the Spirit are we producing for the world to see? Where that we can be the light in this darkness. We know what's coming. They don't. They're blinded. So we must fight harder and keep our faith in God, you know. Bernard keeps me lifted up so many times, and he just don't know it. I call him my brother, and he is my brother in my heart. I thank God for him every day. They know my story. They know my past. And I didn't have a family like Ken. And he is my brother. And I thank God for all of you putting you in my path. Because this is what we are, a family. You know, Leanne, you talked about what you were feeling coming in this room. And it could only be if we're in unity with God and his love. So that's all I got to say. And I know it was long, and I'm sorry.
We have direction from Jesus Christ to tell us what we're supposed to be doing right now. And I'm going to start in Luke 6 chapter. I'm going to skip the woe. I'm going to go to verse 27. And he gives us the instructions. You know, he tells us to love our neighbors ourselves. He tells us all of this. This is where I'm driving at, where we supposed to practice the religion every day in our everyday life. And these instructions came straight from the Master. But I said to you, here, love your enemies. Ladies and gentlemen, very few of us do that. That's why I'm getting off of this intellectual religion and getting to get how we conduct in our life every single day and every second of the day. Are we truly loving our enemies? My wife said she don't have any. So I think what she's saying is, if I got them, I don't see them. He said, do good to those who hate you. This is what the Master said do. Are we doing that? Coming out of the U.S., or how to come out of the world, this is the way you come out of the world. You don't come out of the world physically because you're here. But it's the way you live your life, and you have to go back to the reading of the Master. And what is his instruction? Blessed those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Whoever hit you on the cheek, offer him the other also. Whoever take away your coat, do not withhold your shirt from him either. Now, you know, this is not easy to do. I can talk about it, but this is religion. This is the religion of Jesus Christ. This is what you're supposed to be doing. Now, you know, we smart, we know more than anybody else, mostly, but do we practice every day, every 24 hours a day, even in our dreams? Do we make ourselves dream, you know, this way? But we need to have to put on the mind of Christ, and this is the mind of Christ because he's the one that's telling us. Verse 30, give to anyone. This is amazing to me because I have never done. I've given a few people, but I haven't done this. Give to everyone who asks you of you. Whoever take away what is yours, do not demand it back. I was doing that. I wasn't thinking about that scripture when I didn't ask for the money. I told him, I sent him a text and said, y'all cheat me out of 6 hours, and then I left it alone. So I don't know. I think they put it on my paycheck. I didn't even look because I didn't want to be disappointed before I come to feast. so I didn't look at it. Treat others the same way you want them to treat you. This is the standard Bible, American Standard. I borrowed it. I didn't have a Bible. You ever have a Bible study without a Bible? I did. I had to get it from Roger over there. Then he goes on to tell us in verse 32, if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even the sinners love those who love them. People, this is religion. This is the thing, this is what we should be doing. And if we're not doing it, we need to get these Beatitudes ingrained inside of us where we think this way all the time. Now, you know, I be wanting to pop people side the head and everything. I have to think, you know how we are. We are human beings. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even the sinners do also the same. If you lend to those from whom you expect to receive, what credit is it to you? For even sinners do that. Lend a sinner in order to receive back the same amount. But love your enemies, do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. That's hard to do. I gave a friend of mine $300 when you could pay your rent, when you could pay your house note. That was a long time ago. He was behind about, I don't know how many house notes. I gave him $300. I never got that money back. And we still friends, but I can't tell you that I think about it. I said, God, I know what I'm supposed to do with that $300. I got it, pay me back. I'm trying to do good. Yeah. Find out where I was. I'm going to read Star 35. But love your enemies and do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for he himself is kind to ungrateful and the evil man. God, when it rains, it just don't rain on righteous people. The guy next door to you might be the evilest man in the world. And going back to the Matthew, the 5th chapter, verse 14, you are the light. In verse 14, when the word light is mentioned, in that word light means to manifest, make known. It doesn't mean you just go around with a glow on your face and look happy. It does mean to manifest, make known, to speak out. And the word, and that's in 14. In 15, the word light means to illuminate, just like the light here. Go back to 16 again, It means to manifest or make known, but it also, you do this because everything we do, even this right here, what I'm just reading, we do it to bring glory to the Father. So what should we be doing? You know, we can go back. You know, I could go back up to the start here. But woe to you who are rich, for you are receiving your comfort in full. Woe to you who are well fed, now for you should be hungry. Woe to you who laugh, now for you should mourn and weep. Woe to you when all men speak well of you, for their father used to treat the false prophet in the same way. But he answers all that later on. If you living in this world and you preaching Jesus and the world love you, and you on TV getting all that money, I can always tell the false prophet because the world loves him. I don't even have to listen to him. If the world loves him, he's false. Because the world's not going to love you if you tell the truth. And be honest with you, you were going to have that problem among the brethren. I'm isolated from, people don't invite me to speak often, so I usually go to come twice is good. but my philosophy is this: if it's in the Bible, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to sit there and play with it. I got friends, but the way I talk, I might not have any. You know, I mean, I'm black. I come from the black community. And when I look at the Bible and go to a black person and tell them that, I love Martin, I didn't want to ride the back of the bus, and I'm so glad in my adult life that I could eat in restaurants, I could stop and stay in hotels. But civil disobedience is against the Beatitudes. There's nowhere in the Bible where God tells people that you don't like what the government does, you go out and protest. It's not there. What is there is this right here. And so if you want to let your light shine, if Jesus' light shine, you have to go back to the Beatitudes. You have to love your enemies. And that's it. So I'm finished. So anybody else got anything to say?
Well, we've talked a lot tonight about what kind of witness, how can we witness? And I just want to push the edges of the envelope a little bit. Ezekiel 33 says, if the people of the land take a man of their coast and set him for their watchman, if when he sees the sword come upon the land, he blows the trumpet and warns the people, then whoever hears the sound of the trumpet and takes not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not warning, his blood will be upon him. But he that taketh warning will deliver his soul. But if the watchman sees the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore you will hear the word of my mouth and warn them from me. So I really think that's loving your brother. I think we may have some unique insights because our eyes are, we have prophetic insight into what's happening in the world. And so we don't want to be like the sleeping virgins. We want to be that voice that calls people and says, wake up, behold, the bridegroom comes. You know, the end of the world is here, and it's time to turn to, just like Noah did, it's time to get on that ark. It's time to turn to Yeshua. We won't have a political solution. Things are going to get worse, and it's just like you, Brother Leon, you stated in your sermon, the world's not going to get better. We can only turn to Christ and ourselves get better. So there are many messages we could carry, but Todd and I have noticed that that Yahweh is raising up watchmen left and right in the political realm, in the medical realm, in the legal realm, and they are losing their careers. They're putting everything on the line to tell the truth. These are brilliant minds that are exposing in all these different areas all the corruption of Babylon, of all the world systems. But the church, where is the church? They are almost silent. Maybe you're hearing voices in the church that are sounding the alarm, and maybe we're just not finding the right sources. If you hear, we know in the Jackson area, we hear about 1 or 2 preachers that are telling the truth about what's going on in the world. So if you know about them, let me know. I'd like to tune into them, you know.
Most are afraid. They don't want to be canceled, lose their YouTube channel, lose their streaming. By the way, when you talked about, when the trumpet sounds, the watchman sounds the trumpet, and the sword comes, the blood's on his own head. In modern parlance, I tell my kids, to me now, after what happened in December, when the tornado sirens go and you don't jump in the bathtub with your German Shepherds, if you get blown away by the wind, it's your own fault. That's how I look at it now. And what Leon said as far as loving your enemies, because when you look at the Beatitudes, those are hard. That doesn't come from the mind of man. That comes from the Creator who made all things. There's no existence or any human civilization writing that thinks like that. Those are the principles of our Master. And remember the scripture, Jesus loved us while we were still yet sinners, poured out his own blood for us while we were still yet sinners. And yet that's our Master. That's who we're to emulate. If I'm far from the mark, and it is a hard thing to do, to love your enemies, bless those who curse you, because I'm sure the first thing you want to do, ball up that fist. Ball up that fist.
Yeah.
All right, so directly to your love the sinner, okay. It is possible to let your light shine as a Christian and tell a person engaging in an alternate lifestyle that you do not agree with their lifestyle, and my Bible and my God tell me it's wrong, and not lose that person as a friend. You don't walk up to a sinner and say, "You're sinning." You build a relationship showing who you are as a Christian and gently tell them. One of the people that I gave the sermon about the plan of salvation was a co-worker who was homosexual, and we were not friends at the beginning. We were work acquaintances. We'd talk across the cubicle. Mm-hmm. Over the course of a year, he felt comfortable. He saw something in me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Gently over, I said, you're a great guy, but now that we're friends, I have to let you know, I do not agree with your lifestyle. My Bible tells me that's wrong. I still love you as a person, and I value the friendship and the interaction we have at work, but I do not. You are sinning in my eyes. And that person still had a healthy working relationship. We still ate lunch at the lunch table with everyone. And I work with a female homosexual now. I didn't come out and tell her, I'm just going to have to avoid you because, okay. Very shortly after we worked, I was able to tell her the exact same thing. She has come to me crying over a life crisis, put her arms around my shoulder and said, "Please pray with me right now and help me get through this." You can't, does that not make sense on how to be an example of how Christ loved the sinner and exposed the sin?
There was homosexuals in the church, so in the New Testament church, they were repentant, though. Only thing I have, in church, they should repent or be in the process of repenting. But they should be welcome in the church.
But what I'm saying is,
if they're repentant,
those people knew I was a Christian. I had professed that I was a Christian. And if the only thing they ever see out of me is you are the, hate, I hate homosexuals, which I do not. I hate the sin. That person needs to know that, the love of God is available to them and that we do not hate that person. They are making a sinful decision and not making any effort to come out of that. We can still love that person. We love the sinner. We love our enemy. If they don't know we love them because we just bash them face to face, that is not setting an example that I think we need to set as a Christian.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to mistreat anybody. So I agree with that. That one thing, when I talk about homosexuality or abortion on the radio station, there's a little something hit me right. It comes in my mind every time. Tell them that God can forgive. But even before I got on the radio, before I ever knew that I was going to ever stand in front of anybody and preach, I did not want to leave an audience without the hope of glory, without God's mercy. I never want to do that. I don't care what you did. I'm not the kind that's going to try to beat you up anyway, but because I'm too bad myself. But I have to acknowledge sin. If it's sin, I have to say it, or I have to stop preaching. Now when I was walking down the street of my little small town, and at the time it's bigger than that now, and the homosexual, I knew he was a homosexual, I've been knowing him for 40 years. Well, it wasn't not that long. But anyway, he come to the door and saw me and turned and went in and went back in the house. And then in that little section of town, there's about 5 of them, all of them knew me. One of them, mother died. And I went through there shaking hands with the family, with my wife. My wife's family is her hometown. And when I got to the homosexual, I held his hand with love. And he know I was against the sin, but he never acted that way again. Because he didn't realize that I could show him that kind of compassion. He just lost his mother, but I can show him compassion, but it's still homosexual it's not a good thing. There's nothing clean about homosexuality to me. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. In terms of the point about the homosexuality, I think that the thing that I try to keep in mind is the Bible says the battle is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And anytime, as a church, and I think as an individual, we got to get the doctrine correct, okay? We all sin, but we shouldn't be teaching sin.
Amen.
Okay? And so we can all agree on that without saying, well, you're a sinner, you're a sinner. No. We're all sinners. Mm-hmm. But let's get the doctrine correct. Because if we get the doctrine correct, then, oh, by the way, Holy Spirit can work with us to get rid of the sin. But what I find is that whether it's homosexuality or it doesn't matter what it is, okay, people always want to say, well, you got to be more loving. And it creates an opening, and Satan drives a Mack truck through it. And that's what has happened right now with, you remember there was a time when homosexuals were criticized, murdered, whatever, right? And then, we got to be more loving. And now, we can't decide what's a boy or a girl. We can't decide, okay, now we got homosexual marriage. So we got to be clear. Let's teach the doctrine correctly. Then we can be merciful for ourselves
I agree with that.
and others. But I find that sometimes the churches, we get a little weak-kneed when it comes to preaching the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it is. So, I mean, that's kind of where I landed. What I really wanted to say is, we were talking about, you had said at the beginning, Leon, about how we're too attached to the world. And I think the thing that I'm working on personally, particularly the last 2 years, is I see all the things that are coming. We've been talking about the World Economic Forum and the Mark of the Beast, and Bernard gave a great synopsis of what's really happening, the power behind the throne. And I'm saying, well, how can I mitigate me getting caught up? And I'm getting to the point where we've got to become less and less attached to this world, okay? Less and less attached. That means it's great to have a job. It's great to have finances. It's great to have friends. God knows we need it. But if we are not putting our faith in God, then we're going to get snared. And everybody will have a reason why they can't be obedient. Everybody will have a reason why they can't commit to the truth.
You're right.
And I think that for me personally, that's kind of what I'm working on, is that day when something that I care near and dear, Satan got a hold of. And now, if I'm not careful, I'm going to get compromised. And I think as believers, as saints, we're the real targets. He's already got the world. He's trying to take us down. So Christ had this parable here about, the guy that said, how do I earn eternal life? And he said, keep the commandments, don't commit murder, honor your mother and your father. He says, I've done all those things. And Christ said, well, there's one thing you lack. Sell everything you have and distribute to the poor, and come and follow me. And he walked away sorrowful. And I'm thinking, wow, he didn't want to give up his wealth. What is that really saying? That was his idol, and he didn't want to give it up. And I think what are the idols in our life that if it really came down to it, we're unwilling to give it up? And that's what happened with this young ruler. We think he's rich, but the real story here is it was an idol. See, Christ didn't talk about the first, he didn't say to him, I'm one God, don't no images. He didn't start there. He started with the commandments that he knew the man knew about. And he let the man convict himself that he had a problem, and he walked away. So I think for all of us, and certainly for me personally, is we got to examine our lives for those idols, that if we ever had to give them up, could we?
And you had to go do it. Boy, that's really, I'm thinking about all those Star Wars figures I got. That I just, man, that's a hurtful, painful thing to think about. But I do want to piggyback on your first set of comments there, because it dovetails what you had to say, Sarah. And this is a true thing, because when you were speaking, it got me thinking. Because one of the things that you'd never believe is how much I'm going to call it the agenda, the homosexual transgender, is made its way into the church. I know what you're talking about, Ben, because parents and grandparents now, because their kids are in the system, they go to public school and they've been indoctrinated, now they're coming out and they're transgender. And then the mom and the grandparents get mad because the church doesn't accept them, because the kid's going to parade it. Because it's pride. I'm going to parade it. You have to accept me. And you better love me, the fact that I'm doing all these things. Which gets to Ben's point. Bernard said something earlier this feast that we have to keep in mind. He used the word, he says, this is the problem with Christians. This is the problem with especially the church. The corporate church, independent church, the messianic. This is the problem in the church. Condemnation. We have no authority from Yeshua to engage in condemnation. That's not our job at all, and that's what we engage in. Our job is to say, this is the way, walk in it. And you can do that in love, but where the line gets drawn and where we failed, where the Christian church in this country and in the West has failed, where the Sabbatarian church, the Messianic church is failing, is we don't know, we can't discern the line between this is the way, walk in it, and knowing when to put our hand up to an agenda. The agenda is the spiritual principalities and powers that we're at war with. That's where it's all coming from. It ain't the grandkid or the kids in public school that now thinks that they're a girl or a boy that we want to get mad at. They're deceived. We're spiritual warfare here. But they're going to try and push that on us. If we don't say, okay, now wait a minute, this is the way, walk in it, but if they have an agenda, they're going to keep pushing it. Our job is to stand up and say, that ain't happening. There's the line. I dare you to cross it. We sang the song today with Mr. Dishman, Onward Christian Soldiers. We march at our knees, we march in prayer, but we're supposed to be warriors for God, warriors for Christ. Was that not David's job? He stood up. He wasn't afraid. We don't have to be afraid. We are fighting spiritual forces in high places. There's a spiritual war out there. You're seeing it every day. But there is a point where the church, where you individually or as a congregation, when you see the agenda That's Satan the devil, and he's bringing it in through the instruments, even through their kids and grandkids in the church. You could say, no, this is the way, walk in it, like you did, Sarah. But there comes a point in time where the agenda has to be rebuked firmly, strongly, powerfully. That's true of everything that we're watching happening out there. All the lies, the untruth, the corruption, everything. Or else, because if you don't speak the lie and go along with the flow, you can't have a bank account. You're going to lose your YouTube account. You're going to lose your Snapchat. You're going to lose all these things. And that's what Ben's point was. We're of the world, but we shouldn't be in it. We could lose all these things that we put all our value in. We've gotten accustomed
We
to
can even
them.
lose our lives.
Yes, and you will lose your life. If you're not willing to lose your life for Jesus Christ, then what good are you? You know, those that are willing to lose their life for Christ are going to find it. They're going to save it. And those that seek to save their lives are going to lose it. If you're going to stand up for the truth, as our brethren in India do, you could lose your life. As the culture becomes more wicked and more lawless, because Satan hates us. He wants us destroyed. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get preachy. It's just you mentioned the point. That is a nerve ending with me.
If you get happy, get happy.
I've watched way too many people in the church and their kids and grandkids leave the church because they now have the agenda. And where's the strength of the body? Where's our convictions? Where's our anchor? We can get angry on behalf of our Father in heaven. What we can't do is what Bernard said. We can't condemn.
Can't condemn, no.
That's the
We can't
problem.
do nothing.
That Bernard brought it up in the feast.
Well,
I think that's a key thing.
One of the things, getting back to Ezekiel 33, because I love going to Ezekiel 33, it's a good reminder for me, and I understand about not getting wrapped up in protests and that sort of thing. However, I also see that we are living in what was supposedly a self-governing nation. And in that wisdom of having a self-governing nation, I see that as the parable of talents comes into play. If we're given something that's valuable and we do nothing with it, then are we being the wicked servant to some degree? Because if we do live in a self-governing nation, we are supposed to stand up, right, for the wrongs and stuff like that. Peaceful protesting is one way. Now I'm saying peaceful protesting at the same time. We could talk about the Revolutionary War all night long and how God did bless those who stood up for the natural rights that God gave his people as the watchman on the wall. I see a direct parallel in that. Now, of course, how far do you go with any of these things? That's a whole nother matter. But I do see that being a whistleblower, that's part of the watchman mentality. And there's a lot of whistleblowers that have come out that aren't Christians. Now, isn't that strange? Because you would think that there'd be more Christians that would be whistleblowers over the last decades. Because isn't it our job to say, hey, look over here, look over there, look what's going on, you know, and say, we need to stand up to this. But, you know, in actuality, the prohibition of the 20s, from what I've understood through history, a lot of the churches bowed down to Satan, is what I would call it. When the state comes along and say, you're not allowed to drink alcohol, it's like, wait a minute, and the churches go along with that? To me, that's just like, well, wait a minute. Why would the Christian churches go along with that? I mean, when you start thinking about that for a while, it just doesn't make any sense. Well, it does make sense if we understand that the kingdoms of this world are ruled by Satan. Then it makes perfect sense to me. So that's a good question, though, is how do we, you know, where's that balance point of, you know, you don't want to get believe me, you do not want to get wrapped up in, or at least, you know, because I got wrapped up into politics to some degree for the purpose of trying to make some good changes, to try to figure out, well, how can we make things a little better? Because quite frankly, there's a lot of points in history just in this country that if people did stand up at certain points, things wouldn't necessarily be as bad as they are right now. There are points in times where there's opportunities, and if we don't stand up in those points in times, whose fault is it really? You know?
I think the answer is in John 6. Yeshua fed the 5,000, and the Galileans, of course, loved Yeshua. They were down at his first Passover, saw the first miracles he did. So when he finally, beginning of year 2 of his ministry, comes up to Galilee to minister there, they receive him. They receive him. However, because of the feeding of the 5,000, they saw the miracle that he had done. They said, of a truth, this is the prophet who was to come into the world. However, because Yeshua perceived that they were about to come and seize him, so that they might make him king, he withdrew again to a mountain by himself. And when the evening was come, his disciples went down to the sea. They went into a ship. Actually, the synoptic gospels tell you that Yeshua hurried them down to the shore to get them away from these crowds. He wanted his disciples to have no part in this political movement. I'm not saying that what happened in 1774 and 1775 and through 1783 was certainly the will of Yahweh, but it was at a time when the religious climate was, let's get this country ready for Yeshua. Let's perfect it. Let's perfect a society. And we don't have that today. Now, I'm not saying I'm against any of these people we hang out with at these patriot meetings, or they're trying to get the right people elected locally or in state government, or send the right people to Washington. We love the fact that they're buying us some time. They're in some ways restraining the evil, exposing the evil, which is light. Anything that exposes evil is light. So we understand their motives are noble. And in some ways, maybe they're more righteous than we are by laying their life on the line. But I still come back to this. These Galileans went down to the Passover that year. Remember, the feeding of the 6,000 was right before the Passover, according to John 6, verse 4. So these Galileans, same Galileans that were trying to make him king, go down to the Passover, and Pilate knows about their desire to make Yeshua king. And what does he do? He mingles their blood with their Passover sacrifices. There's a guy named Joseph Blinzler, 2 generations ago, wrote a terrific article combining all these facts together into a tremendous article. And the long and the short of it is that we have a kingdom worth fighting for and advertising. And I don't have enough in common with these MAGA people. I am a MAGA person in some ways. I'd like to see America become spiritually great again. But we would disagree on we don't have enough agreement on the law of God and what shape any kind of revolution would take. Any more than the people in France knew what kind of shape the revolution against the monarchy was to take 200 years ago. So I think we need to understand exactly what happened here in John 6.
We got one behind you. We got one back here. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Look, there's a reason the scripture I was impelled on opening night to say, remind us, Jesus said, he who endures to the end will be saved. If you're looking to the institutions of men, if we're looking at politics, forget it, folks. Not going to happen. Look to Christ. There's a reason that at this feast our focus has been on unity and growing in the Spirit and building, because we're going to need one another. Because we're about to go through things that we've never had to go through in this country because we have forsaken our God as a people and as a nation. And if you want to know what's going to happen, look what happened to Israel, because it's we're doing it again. Only it's worse for us because the Spirit of God wasn't present in ancient Israel. It is with us. We were to be a spiritual Israel from the Mayflower Compact Pilgrims on down. They made a covenant vow with God back then that we have violated the same way ancient Israel did. If you want to know what's going to happen, and it probably does because our Father is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Look what happened to ancient Israel. And I think that's probably going to be our fate. Your comment there.
I worked for a major hospital for like 47 years. And the last 10 years, right before I retired, I used to eat lunch with several homosexuals. And they were actually pastors. And so I ate with a lot of the people from pastoral care. And they really couldn't sharpen iron with iron. But it came to me that a lot of times, I don't think they ever experienced who the truth Christ was or why he died for us. And so many of them think more on the lines, I don't know if you remember an old song, and I don't know if it's even sang here, it's just as I am without one plea. I think that's the way many people testify Christ. He accepts you just as you are, but you're supposed to change. And so I always referred to Acts 26:14, which is Paul, and he's testifying to what happened to him on the road to Damascus. He's talking to Agrippa, and he says, "And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice speaking to me and saying in the Hebrew language, 'Shaul, Shaul, why do you persecute me? It is hard for you to kick against the divine impulse.' And I said, 'Who are you, Master?' And he said, 'I am Yeshua, whom you persecute. But rise up and stand on your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you a servant and a witness, both of what you saw and of those which I shall reveal to you, delivering you from the people and the nations to whom I now send you, to open their eyes, to turn them from darkness to light, and the authority of Satan to Elohim, in order for them to receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are set apart by belief in me. Therefore, Sovereign Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision, but declared first to those in Damascus and in Jerusalem and all the country of Yehuda and to the nations that they should repent and turn to Elohim and do works worthy of repentance." I think that half of us, and I know myself included, I have witnessed the Messiah who shed his blood for me, but I haven't sought out making it clear that they need to repent and turn around and do what Yahweh wants them to do.
What version of the Bible are you reading, by the way?
Right now I'm in the, what do they call this?
The complete Jewish Bible?
No.
No? Okay.
It's the scriptures,
I
2009.
like the translation of divine purpose rather than go to the scripture.
Mhm.
Susan, go ahead.
Hi, I have another question. Isn't there a verse, I may be confused, maybe by somebody else's writings, but didn't Jesus say that they didn't fight for me when I was here, but when I return, my people will fight for me?
Yes, he said it.
And isn't that, I think that's when the bride is ready, when we're willing to come out and stand for Christ, which is God's word. And I don't think he means physical fighting, but we will give our life because of the words.
To get back to what Jesus said about what we should be doing, I'm going to Luke, the 12th chapter, and start in verse 29. And this is Jesus talking. "And do not seek what you should eat or what you should drink, nor have any anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows you need these things. But seek the kingdom of God, and all the things should be added to you." That's what you should be doing. Seeking the kingdom of God. All this stuff with the world doing, leave it alone. Come out of that. You can love a homosexual, but you can't change him. You can love, what the scripture said, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Those who believe in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. He said, but God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world. He sent his son into the world to save the world. And that was supposed to be our attitude. We're supposed to be preaching to save, not to condemn. But let me go on and finish this. But seek the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. Do not fear, little flock, for if your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, sell what you have before you do your religious, before you give alms, and provide yourself money bags which do not grow old, a treasure in heaven that does not fail, where no thief approach, nor moth can destroy. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He told the little flock to don't get wrapped up in money. He said, seek kingdom of heaven first. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. I got that. And either we can talk all day, we can philosophize all day, but we can do what the master said, or we just playing games. You either do as God wills, there's no way. That ain't the one way to walk. And God got it right here. We can philosophize, we can talk and all that, but this is the way to go, because this comes from the word of the master. So we need to put the kingdom of God before anything else. Anything that's going to keep us from the kingdom, we need to get rid of it, get away from it. If it's going to pull us away from God, we need to turn it loose. Sometimes that might even mean our own family, our own children. But that's what the master told us to do. So what should we be doing? We should not be looking for the things of this world for our solution. The solution won't come from the world. And all we doing right now is training to change the world in the wonderful world to come. For he to overcome should share with me on my throne as I share with my Father on his throne. For he to overcome, I should make rule over the cities. We are the hope of the world. Through Jesus Christ, through us, is going to save the world and change the world in the future. And I didn't read this in the Bible, but for thousands of years, Jesus is going to be conditioned in the world, changing the whole ecology so he can feed. I know some people say they know the right number, but most of the mathematicians, they try to figure out, they don't know how many people have lived from the time of Adam to now. They surmise that it's between 30 billion and 100 billion people. It takes only God to make the same earth to be able to take care and sustain life for 30 to 100 million people. And that's some of the things we're going to be doing. But we won't get there if we don't put the kingdom first. We won't get there if we don't love our enemy. We won't get there if we don't do the things that are said in Beatitude. And I don't care where you go, if you're going to live a Christian life, go back to the Beatitude. You can give your opinion all day long, but the Beatitudes is Jesus' opinion. So I have no philosophy. I gave it up now 50 years ago. The only philosophy I got is what the master tells me to do. And to be honest with you, I have committed myself that if I have to sit on my patio alone until Jesus take me, I'm going to do that because I'm not compromising God's word. If I see it, I'm going to say it. And one of the black radio stations there used to say, if you want it told, I'll tell it. You want it sold, I'll sell it. Well, I ain't selling it, but I'll sure tell it. And I'm a trunk of the tree guy. All that other stuff, I stay right to that tree. I hold that tree to death. You know, the only thing I've done since I've been baptized is to learn how to defend what it is I believe. I haven't learned, my doctrine hadn't changed. I was talking to these people in the worldwide that was like, nah, I'm doing the same thing I was doing in 73. I'm doing it better because I know more. I've refined it. But basically, I'm with my first love. I kept the holy days. I read the booklet, half the booklet, and I knew the holy days were right. I had no argument with the holy days at all. It just made sense. But I got more knowledge of the holy days than I had when I first started. So when I was talking about woe to the rich man and all of that, basically what I knew what Jesus said at the end of that, after that, and I know that the way And this is common. It's so simple, we just overlook it. It's so simple, love your enemy, we forget it, I mean, how many times have we heard it? Turn the other cheek. He really didn't mean that. I had a guy tell me that once, and I got him walked off. And I said, well, okay, I studied that. Okay. I never did say anything else to him about it. I can say this before we close. Christianity, the way Jesus taught it, is the most submissive religion in the world. It is very submissive. Husband and wife, submit yourself to one another as you're submitting to the Lord. Everything about the religion is submissive. So anytime you show too much aggression, you're letting Satan get in. So woe to the rich man. I'm ready. I'm finished.